My sister and I are twins. After entering an arranged marriage, both of our relationships turned out terribly, so we decided to swap husbands. Her husband is a university professor, rigid, emotionally distant, and sapiosexual. She, on the other hand, is lively and talkative, slacks off at work, and just wants to lie flat and enjoy life. One has little emotional need. The other craves constant attention. Because of this, they argue so fiercely it feels like the world is turning upside down. Meanwhile, my husband and I are the complete opposite of them. I'm a career-driven woman who has zero tolerance for stupidity. I'm constantly busy, spending more than half the year on business trips. My husband, however, is a rich second-generation heir, socially anxious, unwilling to work, and only wanting to be a stay-at-home husband. More than once, he has broken down in tears because he couldn't convince me to quit my job. In the end, my sister made the final call. For the sake of all four of us, let's switch. Chapter 1. Both my sister and I were bound by family-arranged marriages. Divorce was almost impossible. Once again, after her husband Bruno responded to her emotions with cold indifference, she ran to his workplace and caused a huge scene. For the first time ever, the usually reserved and silent Bruno lost his temper. If you keep this up, I think we'll have no choice but to live separately and do our own thing. I don't want it to come to that, but you'd better learn where to draw the line. His icy gaze carried an overwhelming pressure, making my sister, who was sobbing in my arms, shrink back. But what followed was an even greater emotional breakdown. Like she had gone mad, my sister screamed at Bruno, venting all her pent-up emotions without restraint. How can you say something like that? Why are you always so high and mighty, ignoring my messages and refusing to answer my calls? I tell you I'm upset, and instead of comforting me, you leave me hanging and expect me to just deal with it myself. It's always like this. Every single time. I lie awake all night while you sleep just fine. Or worse, you just disappear completely. You won't even give me the basic right to have an equal conversation. What gives you that right? Bruno raised a hand and tiredly removed the silver-rimmed glasses resting on his nose, pressing his brow in irritation. There was nothing in his eyes but cold detachment. He glanced indifferently past my sister's tear-streaked, contorted face. Then he stood up and picked up his coat. Roma, this is the last time I'm warning you. If you come to my school and make a scene again, we're done. Chapter 2. Bruno left. My sister's emotions didn't settle. Instead, they spiraled even further out of control, like she had lost her mind. She smashed the furniture throughout the entire room. Exhausted, she collapsed onto the floor, leaning against the sofa, quietly sobbing, with a self-mocking laugh, her voice trembling with tears. She asked me, "Do you think I'm crazy? That it's all my fault? But do you remember what I used to be like? I wasn't like this. Out of all the relationships I've had, only Bruno is like this. He's tormenting me mentally. I'm dying, I really am. I can't breathe, but this is a marriage I have to endure for the rest of my life." To be honest, I couldn't understand why my sister would reduce herself to such a miserable state for a husband who didn't love her. Because I'm too busy, so busy I don't even have time to eat. She gave up her inheritance, cashing out all her shares, just so she could completely lie flat and enjoy life. But I chose the opposite path, ambitiously competing with my brothers for the right to inherit the family business. I thought, if they can do it, why can't I? Now, through my own efforts, I've secured a firm position in the company and become one of the most promising heirs. And to go from one of the candidates to the only one, I need to invest even more time and energy than before. That's why I pay extra attention to my health and keep up with exercise. This kind of emotional outburst from my sister is simply too draining for me. It suits her, but not me. I'm afraid that after pulling an all-nighter for work, one visit like this might just make me drop dead on the spot. So I tried to persuade her patiently. Bruno already said you can each do your own thing. Why are you so fixated on him? The moment I finished speaking, her phone rang. She lit up with excitement, tears of joy streaming down her face. It's Bruno. It has to be him. But it wasn't. It was my husband, Nathan, calling. Chapter 3. The irritation rising in my chest made my expression turn unpleasant. My sister wiped her tears and shot me a sarcastic glance. You blocked him again? You and Bruno are exactly the same, completely lacking in empathy. All you do is neglect and torment your partners until they go crazy and have no choice but to contact people around you just to find you. We love you with everything we have. And you still get angry at us? That set me off. If you don't know what actually happened, don't come here throwing accusations and taking it out on me. Blocking Nathan was my last resort. I truly had no way to deal with this arranged marriage husband of mine. Today was the day I returned to the country. I had told him in advance that I had a meeting this morning and not to disturb me during it. I said I would go home right after the meeting. He had agreed perfectly fine, but the moment my meeting started, he began calling me like a man possessed, over and over again, urging me to come home for a meal. I replied, telling him I'd return after the meeting, but it was like he couldn't understand a word I said. He kept calling and messaging me, going on about how the soup he made had to be drunk immediately after cooking, that it couldn't wait, or it would lose its medicinal effect. Lola, are you really so busy you don't even have time to drink a bowl of soup? No, I don't believe you. I had a mountain of work in my hands, and my subordinates were all waiting to report to me. He was driving me insane, so I had no choice but to block him. I didn't expect him to start calling my sister instead. Chapter 4. I didn't allow my sister to answer the call. The phone rang out, then hung up automatically. I plugged in my own phone, which had already powered off. The moment it turned on, messages from friends and colleagues flooded in one after another. Call your husband back immediately. He's been crying nonstop. It's really pitiful. Those messages alone were already irritating enough. Then I saw a message from someone who had always tried to sabotage me. My own brother. Lola, can you control your husband? If you can't even manage your own husband, how do you expect to run the company? A grown man crying everywhere looking for you. Do you even have the awareness and responsibility of being a wife? If not, just quit and go home already. I turned off my phone expressionlessly, took a minute to steady myself, and only then managed to calm my irregular heartbeat. I was so angry it made me nauseous. My sister's phone rang again. Nathan kept calling persistently, like a relentless alarm that wouldn't stop. I took a deep breath, suppressing my emotions, and said calmly, "Hang up, ignore him, I'll go back later." My sister got angry. Later? How much later? Have you ever thought that in the hour it takes for you to go back, he'll be miserable for that entire hour? You clearly have the time right now to call or message him and tell him you'll be back soon. Is that so hard? Why do people like you even get married? You shouldn't be married at all. I was utterly exhausted. It's an arranged marriage, okay? Otherwise I wouldn't have gotten married in the first place. There's no love to begin with. Once I successfully become the family heir and secure my position in the company, the first thing I'll do is get a divorce. My sister looked at me like I was hopeless, then ignored me and answered the call. Very quickly, Nathan's choked, breathless voice came through the phone, fragile and pitiful. No one would guess this was a 1.8-meter tall, muscular man who practiced Muay Thai. Sister, I can't reach Lola. I knew she was coming back today. So early this morning I went to the supermarket and bought a lot of ingredients. I made so many of her favorite dishes. I kept messaging and calling her, but she wouldn't respond. When I reached 99 calls, she blocked me. Sob. The sound of him blowing his nose came through, followed by even more broken sobs. His speech was disjointed. The food I made has all gone cold. I plated everything nicely. Left it out for so long, even reheating plates didn't help. It's lost the fresh from the pot taste. I'm so upset. I spent 6 hours cooking and stewed medicinal dishes all night, and now it's all gone to waste. She said she would come back today. I've been waiting for her the whole time. I cleaned the house spotless, even changed the bed sheets. Chapter 5. I truly couldn't endure the way my sister looked at me, as if her gaze alone could slice me apart. I spoke first, my tone cold as ice into her phone. I'll be back soon. Stop calling people around me to harass them. Nathan, you're really annoying. With that, I hung up. My sister threw her phone down, furious. Before she could start condemning me, I cut her off. What happens between him and me is none of your business. You're an outsider, don't judge. And don't interfere. Just handle things with your own husband. This place is completely wrecked now. It's not livable, and in your current state, I'm not comfortable leaving you alone. Come stay at my place for a while. This apartment was bought by Bruno for work convenience. You smashing it like this is only making things worse. Go wash your face and come with me. I'll call someone to clean up and replace everything. My sister finally calmed down. After tidying herself up in the bathroom, she came out with eyes swollen like walnuts. I had already arranged for people to handle the mess. She followed me into the car, curling into herself as her tears started falling again, but I didn't have the capacity to deal with her. Work messages kept flooding in on my phone. Calls from the chairman, business partners, and even competitors didn't stop. After replying to work messages, I still had to brace myself to deal with their probing into my marriage and explain away the calls Nathan had made to them. My phone shut off automatically while I was driving. He was just worried about my safety. Sorry for the trouble. By the time I reached home, my throat was dry, and I was utterly exhausted, both mentally and physically. Hearing the noise, Nathan came to open the door. He wore a pink apron, no shirt, his chest muscles firm and defined, but his eyes were as red as peaches, almost rivaling my sister's. The moment he saw me, his eyes welled up again, looking utterly aggrieved. Why did you come back so late? Tears started falling again. My head throbbed. In the past 3 days, I had only slept 8 hours total. In the year since marrying Nathan, we had spent more time apart than together. We hadn't even had a physical relationship yet. From the very first time he cried, trying to persuade me to quit my job and stay home just because I couldn't have a meal with him, I knew we weren't the same kind of people. I had been doing my best to keep my distance, resisting temptation. No matter how much he tried to seduce me, I remained unmoved. A honey trap could cost me my life, and a handsome man's trap could ruin my future just the same. A high-maintenance, fiery stay-at-home husband like him, I might appreciate him, but I simply didn't have the energy to handle it. From afar, admiring his perfect body and face was enough. Chapter 6. When Nathan saw my sister getting out of the passenger seat, he immediately turned his head away, wiping his tears pitifully before going back inside to grab a shirt and put it on. When he came out again, he couldn't help but softly complain to me, "You brought someone back to our home without telling me in advance. You let someone see me like that. And this is our private space, no one else should be brought here." He has a very strong sense of boundaries. Everything in the house has to be done by his own hands. Even daily cleaning, he refuses to let me hire a helper or housekeeper, unwilling to let anyone step foot inside. Whenever I question something I don't understand, he'll happily and affectionately rub against my hand. This is Lola and I's home. No one else is allowed in. So exhausting. What a childish man. Once inside, Nathan excitedly introduced the dishes on the table and said to me with anticipation, "I learned several new recipes recently. You should try them." I looked at the rich, greasy dishes and remembered the doctor's advice from a few days ago to eat lightly, so I could only decline. "I haven't been well lately. The doctor told me to avoid spicy food. You and my sister can eat. I want to get some sleep." Although I had slept 8 hours over the past 3 days, it had all been fragmented rest, utterly draining. I could feel a numbness at the back of my head, and my fingers were trembling slightly. I was genuinely afraid of sudden death. I really needed sleep. After saying that, I went into my room. Yes, even after a year of marriage, Nathan and I still sleep in separate rooms, to prevent being woken up and to get proper rest. I locked the door from the inside. I also reminded Nathan, "I haven't been sleeping well these past few days. I finally have a couple of days off. I want to sleep properly. Don't disturb me." Nathan stood there blankly, his eyes reddening with grievance. "You won't even spare the time to have a meal with me? Are you really that busy? Or do you just not want to see me?" I refused to engage in conversation because once I started, he would keep me talking endlessly. I closed the door and went to sleep. My sister couldn't bear it. "If she won't eat, we will," with reddened eyes. Nathan followed her to the dining table. When he saw that my sister had almost finished every dish he made, he froze. Then he couldn't help but say happily, "This is the first time the food I made didn't end up in the trash." Because he has his own set of principles, many of which I cannot understand. For example, he only cooks for me. His reasoning is, You're my wife. I only serve my wife. My sister and he both had some alcohol. And before long, they both started crying, confiding in each other. After my sister fell asleep in the guest room, Nathan finished showering and brushing his teeth, then took a key and opened my bedroom door. His burning hot hand touched my fingertips. His voice was aggrieved. Lola, we've been married for so long, but we still haven't had a physical relationship. I want a child. I had just barely fallen asleep when I was startled awake, already irritated. The moment I heard him talk about wanting a child, I snapped. Is he trying to ruin me? Get out. Lola, I raised my voice. Get out. He suddenly stood up. Are you even my wife? Do you even want this marriage at all? Why do you keep treating me like this? Someone like you doesn't deserve to be loved by a partner. I reminded him coldly. Nathan, there is no love between us. This is an arranged marriage. He was left speechless. Then, in anger, he slammed the door and left. Chapter 7. Hearing the commotion, my sister came over. She looked at me, clutching my head, trying to ease the stabbing pain, and suddenly spoke in an unusually serious tone. I know you don't like someone like Nathan, clingy and with no sense of boundaries. You're just like Bruno. You like things done efficiently, strictly professional, and you treat work as the most important thing. You must think, just like Bruno does, that partners like us are unreasonable, that we make a joke out of your work and drag personal matters into it. But have you ever tried seeing things from our perspective? Our whole world revolves around you, while yours is entirely work. So the only thing we can do is compete with your work for your attention. The rest of her words got stuck in her throat, unable to come out, enduring the headache. I spoke tiredly. What are you trying to say? This is an arranged marriage. It hasn't even been a year. Should we just ignore the stocks? The company's stability? You might not care about those things and can just split with Bruno. But I can't. My career is my life. And I've been giving his family's company plenty of advantages too. I've already told him we can stay out of each other's way. He's free to find someone else. I'm not trying to hold him back. I'm at my breaking point too, okay? My sister took a deep breath, sat down beside me, and placed her hands on my shoulders. You don't like Nathan, do you? Just like I've always hated someone like Bruno, cold and emotionally distant at the drop of a hat. But you two are actually well matched. You always ask me why I won't agree to Bruno's idea of going our separate ways. That's because, to me, marriage is sacred. I don't want that kind of arrangement. I believe in love. I want a husband who loves me. And I think Nathan and I are the same kind of people. The migraine from exhaustion made my breathing feel heavy and suffocating. My head hurts. What exactly are you trying to say? My sister's voice trembled, her cheeks flushing red. Our marriages only exist to satisfy our families. But we're twins, we look exactly the same. Even our parents can't tell us apart. So let's switch. I know I'm not as smart as you, and I don't have your ambition. I just want to stay glued to my husband every day. Staying at home together and going nowhere. Nathan suits me. Bruno suits you. I know he looks down on me for being foolish and unmotivated. But he admires someone like you, a career-driven woman who fights for her ambitions. I've never shared a bed with Bruno, and you and Nathan sleep in separate rooms. You haven't either, right? So let's switch. It'll be better for both of us, won't it? I fainted, not because I was shocked by her words, but because my body could no longer withstand the prolonged pressure I'd been under. Before I lost consciousness, I was still trying to nod, to speak. Okay. The moment Nathan said he wanted a child, I knew we couldn't even maintain the facade of a marriage anymore. If it were Bruno, at the very least, when we were forced to share the same space during downtime, with his obsessive cleanliness and strict sense of boundaries, I'd probably be able to get a proper, undisturbed sleep. I really, desperately wanted to sleep. Nathan had already pushed me to the brink of nervous exhaustion, and most importantly, Bruno actually understands what people are saying. Chapter 8. When I woke up again, I was in a private hospital room. Aside from my sister, both Nathan and Bruno were there. They've agreed. We'll try it for now. Nathan lowered his head as he looked at me, his dark eyes filled with sadness. Lola, you were right. This is an arranged marriage. There's no love between us. I always believed feelings could be cultivated, but it seems the harder I try, the worse it gets. I think I've just been hurting you all along. Your sister said you agreed too, so I'll give you what you want. He left in tears with my sister. Before leaving, my sister didn't look at Bruno even once. In the blink of an eye, only Bruno and I were left in the room. I corrected myself. Professor Bruno. Bruno leaned back in his chair, a faint smile lingering on his lips. So even you couldn't take it anymore. I thought you had more endurance than I do. Miss Lola. The new way of addressing each other carried a strange, almost forbidden tension. I knew about the arguments between him and my sister, and he was well aware of the conflicts between Nathan and me. Bruno sent me the passcode to his home. He glanced at the watch on his wrist. I've arranged a caregiver for you. They'll assist you with washing up and using the restroom. As for meals, a restaurant under my family will deliver them, 3 nutritionally balanced meals a day. Also, I've sent you my schedule for this week. The times I'm teaching at the university are clearly marked. During those hours, unless it's a life or death emergency, don't disturb me. It's finals week, so I'm very busy. If something can be handled on your own, don't trouble me. After he left with his usual decisiveness, I found myself savoring that strictly businesslike tone. It was delightful. No other reason. At this stage of my career, I truly needed this kind of partner. For several days in a row, my phone, which used to be bombarded nonstop by Nathan, was eerily quiet. I wasn't used to it. The psychological shadow he left behind was too strong. It made me wake up in the middle of sleep, half convinced I heard his ringtone in my head. But when I woke up and checked my phone, it was quiet, peaceful, like surviving a disaster. I drifted back to sleep. The corners of my lips slowly lifted. Freedom, the taste of freedom. Chapter 9. What I didn't know was that Nathan had already completely put me out of his mind. Roma had moved into his house. I didn't have many belongings. Roma packed them up and had Bruno come take them away. Nathan felt like he was dreaming. When he noticed it was time for work, he asked Roma, "Sister, aren't you going to work?" He truly couldn't understand why someone like Lola could have such passion for work. He just didn't get it. Roma lay on the couch with a troubled expression, holding a box of cookies and crunching on them. "I don't feel like working, ugh. I want to quit." "Wow. Where did you buy these cookies? They're so good, send me the link." The cookies were homemade by him. Lola didn't like them. She watched her weight and was always trying to slim down, even though he had specially made them according to a low-calorie, filling recipe for dieting. While waiting for his reply, Roma picked up the remote and switched to a children's channel. When Pleasant Goat and Big Big Wolf came on, sunlight filtered through the curtains, falling softly across her face and body. Nathan sat there blankly, watching the woman sprawled on the couch, laughing without any restraint. His heart couldn't stop pounding. This was the kind of married life he had always wanted. Staying at home with his wife, eating the food he made, watching shows together, idling away time, enjoying the slow passage of life. He cautiously spoke. "Roma, have you ever thought about quitting your job?" "Of course I have. Hell, I'll quit right now. If it weren't for Bruno, that idiot, insisting that if I don't work I'll become disconnected from society and turn useless, I wouldn't work for a single day. No, not even a second. It's not like I need the money. What I have could last me 100 lifetimes. What's wrong with being useless? Who decides what's useful? I just want to sleep until I wake up naturally, eat good food, and enjoy life." As she spoke, Roma pulled out her phone and submitted her resignation on the spot. Then, still fuming, she dialed Bruno's number. The moment he picked up, she snapped, "You absolute idiot. Go work for 100 years. When you die, go work in the underworld too." Bruno immediately blocked her. Roma huffed and lay back on the couch. Then suddenly, she smiled at Nathan again. "Nathan, being with you, even just as friends, is better than being with Bruno. His work is always the most important thing. I'm never important. As long as I'm in the same space as him, I can't help but argue with him, but he never responds. He won't even bother saying a word to me." As she spoke, her eyes slowly reddened, filled with grievance. Nathan felt wronged too. In that moment, He felt like he and Roma shared the same fate. And suddenly, he remembered what Lola once said to him. Nathan, being on the same wavelength matters. We're not aligned, our life plans are completely different. We're simply not suited for each other. Once I establish myself firmly in the company, we'll divorce. When that time comes, I'll compensate your family generously. Yes, that was true. Being on the same wavelength really mattered. He should have found someone who was like him from the beginning, instead of stubbornly trying to turn Lola into someone like himself. Even worse, he had repeatedly acted out of resentment, disrupting the career she cared about so deeply. He realized now, he had really gone too far. Chapter 10. After I recovered, it was Bruno who handled my discharge. On the way, I'll take you back and explain how the spaces in the house are divided. That's when I realized Bruno had sold the apartment my sister had wrecked. He bought 2 large flats near the outskirts by the university and combined them into one. He pointed to the left. This side is mine, the right side is yours. Before you come over to my side, send me a message first. I'll do the same if I need to go to yours. I wholeheartedly agreed. I'm usually away on business trips anyway. When I'm back, I'll let you know. Good. My secretary called, so I said goodbye to Bruno and returned to the company. After I left, Bruno locked the door. He made himself a sandwich, then leisurely prepared a cup of coffee with an elaborate process. The coffee cup had a flashy British style. No brand. He made it himself. He thought it reflected his excellent taste perfectly. By the floor-to-ceiling window, he had placed a dining table for himself. It was flown in from Italy, an expensive piece by a certain artist. He suddenly recalled Roma's idiotic reaction. Why is the kid on this table naked? Bruno, are you some kind of pervert? This table's weird, and the paintings in your house are all flashy in a tacky way. What an idiot. Absolutely no sense of art. This is art. If he had to spend even one more second with someone as uncultured as Roma, he'd die. He took a satisfied sip of the coffee he had carefully ground, the beans personally selected by him overseas. Yet somehow, Roma's loud, chaotic voice echoed in his mind again. Isn't this just instant coffee? What are you even pretending to be, Bruno? Don't argue with me, I'll make you a cup right now. There's no difference at all. Bruno set the cup down harshly, letting out a breath. A complete bumpkin. The table faced the sea outside. From this angle, any photo would look perfect. On a carefully arranged plate, he placed 2 blueberries for decoration. He needed to switch the brand of the ring on his hand. This one had appeared in photos before, and he should casually reveal a glimpse of his red-soled shoes, just a hint of leather. He couldn't help but recall the disastrous photos Roma had taken of him. What terrible luck. He let out a cold laugh. Even a dog could take better pictures than her. Thankfully, she would never appear in his refined and elegant life again. There would be no more disturbances from Roma. Every day would now be perfectly his own. So perfect that Bruno hardly dared to imagine it. In truth, it was no different from how life had been before marriage. Yet the oppressive weight in his chest had completely vanished. He was no longer afraid of going home. A smile crept onto his lips. Roma was practically a genius, coming up with the idea of switching husbands. He hadn't hesitated for even a second. Because he knew clearly, he and Lola were the same kind of people. Extreme individualists. They loved themselves, loved their careers. They enjoyed life, cherished freedom, and lived unrestrained. If not for being born into families like theirs, forced into arranged marriages, he thought he would have lived his whole life as an elegant gentleman. Narcissistic to the end. Single until death. Bruno lifted his cup, taking a sip of the rich coffee, and closed his eyes in contentment. What a perfectly pleasant afternoon. Chapter 11. At the same time, I was thoroughly enjoying my work. I even snatched 2 major projects right out of my brother's hands. He was furious, so mad he even talked about hiring someone to assassinate me. Fair competition. I earned this with my own ability, you useless piece of trash. Even though he kept sabotaging me behind the scenes, I still managed to push everything forward successfully. Especially now, I had Bruno at home, a free consultant. Bruno's company ranks among the very best, and his teaching position is by invitation. After spending some time with him, I realized something. Bruno is incredibly narcissistic. Extremely so. but in a subtle, understated way, and he holds grudges like no one else. For example, if he carefully puts together an outfit and you misidentify the brand, he'll get petty about it, then silently judge you for having no taste. Or, both his and my living spaces, though completely different in style, were personally designed and supervised by him. As long as I compliment even a single decoration in the house, Bruno can't help but narrow his eyes slightly, clearly pleased, just like the cat I used to have. Arrogant, proud, utterly self-absorbed. So I kept praising him tirelessly, and he kept listening tirelessly. Once he was pleased enough, he would start helping me, for free. Consulting fees? Completely saved, while I pushed forward aggressively on my side, working towards securing the official heir announcement after the new year. I didn't expect my sister and Nathan to be just as productive in their own way. In less than a year, they had already made a baby. When my sister announced her pregnancy in our 4-person group chat, I nearly died on the spot. But for now, we still couldn't finalize the divorce, and they couldn't legally remarry either. Everything had to wait until after the heir was officially announced next year. Because of this, Bruno worked even harder to help me. He was furious. A man who had never cursed before, who always prided himself on being a gentleman, actually took the initiative to call Roma for the first time. Are you out of your mind? What the hell? Have you gone insane? But the moment the call connected, my sister blocked him. She didn't hear a single word of his rant. He was so angry he was trembling, crossing into my side of the house as he vented to me. You have to become the top decision maker of the group. I refuse to keep wearing a cheating humiliation badge like this. I'll become a laughingstock. I want a divorce. For someone like him, a peacock of a man who thrives on being the center of attention, if word got out that he'd been cheated on, he might actually grab a knife and drag Roma down with him. He was full of resentment, crying like a ghost with lingering grudges. The unluckiest moments of my life have all been caused by that idiot Roma. Meanwhile, my sister, the one he kept calling an idiot, was an optimist. And now, she was happier than ever, completely different from before, smiling brightly, radiating happiness from the inside out. She and Nathan really were a perfect match. Nathan's looks were top tier. What felt like a flaw to me was, for my sister, like finding a soulmate who truly resonated with her. When Nathan saw me, he apologized somewhat guiltily, about before. I'm sorry. I really didn't respect you, and I didn't take your career seriously. Thinking back, I was pretty awful. Facing him now, I still had a bit of PTSD. I originally wanted to say it was fine, but then I thought about all the sleep I had lost because of him, the nervous exhaustion I ended up with. So you do realize that now. No matter what I said, you just wouldn't listen, like you couldn't understand a word. Afraid I'd go too far, my sister quickly pulled me away. Lowering her voice, she asked sweetly, "So, how are things between you and Bruno?" "How or what?" She nudged me. "I mean, any progress?" I looked at her in surprise. What kind of progress could there be between us? We're the same kind of person, two equally pretentious perfectionists. We're competitors. I admire myself just as much as he admires himself. I cannot tolerate someone being more narcissistic than me right in front of me. And besides, in his perfume collection, there's a limited edition one I want. He's so stingy, he won't even let me touch it. I was truly very, very resentful about that, especially that night at the gala. It was the celebration banquet for my complete victory over my brother, marking the full success of my project. A very important moment of triumph for me. The dress I had waited a whole year for, it matched that perfume perfectly, and he refused to lend it to me. Then, turning around, he put on the suit he had been waiting 2 years to wear and used it himself. That night, he moved through the banquet like a peacock displaying its feathers, smiling just right, holding a wine glass, elegant, confident, charming. Whenever someone with taste noticed and asked about it, he would reveal that signature narrowed eye, smug expression, such a show-off. It was like he was the host of the entire event. Good thing I have a broad mind. Otherwise, I might have fainted from sheer irritation. Chapter 12. In the blink of an eye, it was after the new year. With Bruno's open and undisguised support, I crushed my brother and the rest of my illegitimate younger brothers, becoming the sole heir. After gaining access to the company's core business, I worked even harder, and I made no effort to hide my ambition. In less than half a year, my brother and those illegitimate siblings were all sent abroad, basically exiled to grow potatoes. When my brother was dragged away by bodyguards, he was furious and unwilling to accept defeat. You shameless, two-timing bitch, aren't you just relying on Bruno? What are you worth on your own? Worth nothing. As long as I win, that's enough. How I won? Not your concern. I won. That's all that matters. Bruno is my resource. Why wouldn't I use him? What? Save him for later? Let him expire? After fully taking control, I could finally deal with my marriage. On the day we went to get the divorce certificate, Bruno was dressed even more meticulously than on our wedding day. The way he looked at Roma was like she was his sworn enemy. Divorce certificates done, next came the marriage certificates. After my sister and Nathan left, it was our turn, but Bruno and I tacitly chose not to go in. He hesitated for a moment before asking, "What's going on between you and your secretary?" My eyes lit up. I started explaining with a hint of pride. I genuinely wanted someone with the same taste as me to acknowledge my judgment. He's my lover, perfect body, stunning looks, but more importantly, he's incredibly caring, an excellent support partner. Not only does he massage me when I work late, but he also guards my sleep, not letting anyone disturb me. He even went out of his way to consult a nutritionist just to take care of my health. Stop. Bruno nodded in satisfaction. As long as someone wants you, that's good. As long as you don't fall in love with me after marriage and start making a scene over me, that's fine. I only love myself. After marriage, we stay out of each other's way, live our own lives. Don't interfere with each other. Agreed? I froze, then said speechlessly, "Bruno, I'm strong enough now that I don't even need an arranged marriage anymore. And I've always seen you as a close bestie. How could I possibly fall for you? My type has always been someone like Nathan, a nurturing, devoted house husband type. I just couldn't handle him. But my current secretary is exactly the kind of husband tailored for me. I really need someone gentle and caring like that." Bruno's expression shifted several times. "You don't need an arranged marriage anymore? I'm very wealthy. You know. Ha, those muscular guys look the most brainless. My physique is what you call perfect proportions. Do you even understand that? I swear. Lola, do you have any sense of aesthetic judgment at all?" My phone buzzed with a message from Levi. "Master, I've arrived." The way he addressed me left Bruno completely stunned. "Lola, what kind of weird situation have you gotten yourself into? Be careful not to get scammed. Honestly, marriage should still be between people of equal standing. That way, at least you don't have to worry about ulterior motives." Levi walked over from the car, gently draping a coat over my shoulders and tidying my hair. "Lola, dinner is ready. By the time we get home, the soup should be just right to drink." Then he looked at Bruno. "Bruno, you're not as young anymore. You should dress a bit warmer." Bruno looked like a kettle about to boil over with rage. Chapter 13. What I didn't tell Bruno was, I had no intention of getting married. Not with anyone. One experience of being bound by marriage was more than enough. Now that I had the ability to refuse an arranged marriage, my life had more choices. And because of that, I would never step into it again. Emotionally, I only wanted to enjoy the present. My career was my only true marriage, and I would bind myself to it tightly, never letting go. Ever since that day we parted ways outside the civil affairs office, Bruno and I hadn't contacted each other for half a year. I had been constantly traveling for work, until today. He suddenly sent me a selfie. His chest muscles looked like they were about to burst out of the screen. "How's my training? Better than your little secretary, right? It's very pink." The chat box showed typing for a long time. It stayed that way until Levi came to pick me up for dinner. Only then did the message finally come through. "I don't admire many people. You're the only one. If I had the chance, maybe you could come to my place and try the coffee I make. If you have time. The way you work so hard, it's full of personal charm. Compared to me, you're just a little inferior, but still quite good." Blocked. Why does he always have to throw in a jab at me out of nowhere? What's wrong with him, narcissist? That night, Levi was gentle. I slept soundly. What I didn't know was, on the other side of the wall, Bruno was holding his phone, quietly crying. His tears blurred the words on the screen. Actually, I think I might like you a little. I've never been in a relationship before. Would you be willing to teach me? I'm still inexperienced. Above the message, a glaring red exclamation mark showed. He had already been blocked.